one. I never meant to look at him that way. They say you can't hide from God. But what if the person you're hiding from is yourself? What if the place you go to be saved is where you lose everything you thought you believed? My name is Gabriel Reyes. I'm 23, and I've spent every Sunday of my life in the same church pew, St. Jude's Catholic Church. Small town, stone walls, the kind of place where silence echoes and every secret feels heavier in stained glass light. I was a choir boy, an altar server, and now a youth group leader. My whole life, I thought faith was about order, discipline, control. But then he walked in. His name was Elias. He wore black jeans to Sunday service, had a nose ring, and a tattoo of a verse on his collarbone that I caught a glimpse of and never forgot. He was everything we were warned about, and I couldn't stop looking. The first time I spoke to him was after service. I was stacking chairs in the back room, sweat clinging to my collar, hands shaking more than I'd like to admit. He leaned against the doorframe. "You always are serious about chairs." I turned, startled. He smirked, and something inside me lit up. "Sorry," I said. "Didn't know anyone was back here." "I'm Elias," he said, pushing off the frame. "No, I'm Gabriel." He nodded slowly, looking me over. "Figures." "Figures what?" "That someone named Gabriel would be here. Angelic and all that." I flushed. "Look down." He walked closer. "Don't worry. I'm not trying to corrupt you." I didn't believe that for a second. From that moment, he was everywhere. Youth group, choir practice, late-night study sessions I never used to lead, but suddenly offered. We were never inappropriate, never obvious. But something simmered just beneath the surface. The way he watched me when I prayed, the way he stood just a little too close, the way his hand would brush mine and linger just half a second too long. It wasn't lust. Not only, it was awakening, and it terrified me. One night, after a volunteer shift cleaning the sanctuary, he stayed behind, just the two of us. The church was dark, candles flickering, the smell of incense still hanging in the air like memory. He sat in the front pew. I joined him. We didn't speak for a while. Then he asked, "Do you think God hates people like us?" My stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" I asked quietly. He looked over at me, eyes soft, wounded. "You know what I mean." I stared at the crucifix hanging above the altar, the same one I used to close my eyes in front of when I was 12 and begging not to feel what I was starting to feel, the same one that made me believe I was broken. I didn't answer him, not out loud, but I think he saw it in my face. The same question, the same shame, the same hunger to believe that maybe love wasn't a sin. He leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm tired of pretending." I swallowed hard. "Me too." And then he kissed me, not deeply, not passionately, just enough to break something open, just enough to tell me that everything I believed was about to fall apart. We pulled back, breathing heavy, both of us terrified, but neither of us moved away. "Gabriel," he said, voice rough, "if you want me to leave, say it now." I didn't say anything. I just leaned in again and kissed him like I'd never kissed anyone before, like I'd been waiting my whole life to feel something real. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at my ceiling, heart racing. Guilt gnawed at me, but beneath it, something stronger. Relief, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't lying to myself. But in our town, in our church, the truth doesn't set you free. It puts a target on your back. And I was about to learn the hard way that some confessions come with a price that could destroy us both. What would you do at the place that taught you right from wrong, told you your love was wrong? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe to keep walking this journey with me. Part 2. He was a devil in my sanctuary, and I still let him in, coming next. Part 2. He was a devil in my sanctuary, and I still let him in. Sin doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in the hallway outside the chapel, in the echo of your breath when someone stands too close, In the moment, your hands don't move away. That's how it was with Elias. He didn't corrupt me. He made me admit the truth I was already burying. After that kiss, everything changed. Not in loud, dramatic ways, but in the way I noticed things. How my heart beat faster during Sunday readings. How I lingered near him even when I had nothing to say. How just being in the same room felt like holding my breath. We never talked about it. Not really. The kiss, what it meant, what came next. We just let it hang there, between glances, between hymns, between moments we should have walked away from but didn't. One night, I stayed behind after youth group. I told Father Patrick I was cleaning up. He nodded, trusting as always. Elias stayed too, said he forgot his jacket. I knew that was a lie. He never wore one. We stood in the hallway between the chapel and the office, silent, the air thick with everything unspoken. I shouldn't be here, I said quietly. He leaned against the wall. I shouldn't be anywhere near you. But you are. He looked at me, and it wasn't lust I saw. It was longing, and something more dangerous. Hope. He stepped closer. I didn't stop him. You're scared, he said. I nodded. Of God. No, I whispered, of being seen. He touched my wrist, barely, but it felt like electricity. You don't have to keep living like you're broken, Gabriel. I don't know how else to live. You let yourself want something real. We didn't kiss that night, but it was worse, because what we shared wasn't fleeting. It was dangerous. It was honest. And honesty, in a place like this, can unravel everything. The next morning, I went to confession, for the first time in years. I didn't mention Elias by name. I just said, I think I've been tempted. Father Patrick was quiet. Then he said, we all are, but this feels different. I told him. How so? I hesitated. It doesn't feel like temptation. It feels like truth. There was a long pause. Then, not every truth is holy, my son. I walked out with my stomach twisted. Was I supposed to feel guilty? Because I didn't. Not fully. I felt scared. Yes, but also seen. And that was something I hadn't felt in years. Elias and I kept finding each other. Never planning it. Just drifting into the same spaces. After service cleanup. Volunteer events. Community dinners where our knees touched on the table and neither of us moved. Every second we spent apart felt too long. Every second we spent together felt like borrowed time. We were playing with fire, but neither of us stopped, because we'd already been burned by silence. And this was something different. One night, I found a note in the hymn book I always used. Meet me behind the chapel. Midnight. My heart jumped. I almost didn't go. Almost. But at 11:57, I was already outside, pacing, sweating, praying that no one saw me. Elias stepped out of the shadows like he'd always belonged there. His voice was low. I've never wanted anything I couldn't name before. I swallowed. And now, I want you. I don't remember who moved first, only that our mouths met like a secret finally spoken. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was everything we hadn't said. Everything we'd buried, pulled up to the surface and kissed into each other's skin. Afterward, we stood in silence, both of us breathless, shaken, alive. You okay? He asked. No, I whispered. He stepped back. I'll stop if you want me to. I looked at him, this messy, complicated, beautiful person. No, I said, don't. But that night, someone saw us. I didn't know it then. Didn't feel it, but a shadow had moved past the chapel window, and the next morning, Father Patrick asked to see me. He closed the office door gently, folded his hands, and said, I need to ask you something. Please answer with honesty. My heart pounded. Yes, Father? Are you struggling with urges? I didn't respond, not with words, not with lies. I just sat there, still, exposed. And in that stillness, I think he understood everything. That night, I called Elias. I think someone knows. He was silent. Then, do you want to stop? I closed my eyes. No, I just want to survive this. But survival wouldn't come easy. Not in this town. Not in this church. Not when people believe love only counts when it fits their script. The walls were starting to close in. Whispers in the back pew. Side eyes during youth group. Texts that stopped coming. And yet, I kept choosing him. Again and again. Because I'd rather be damned for truth than praised for pretending. Have you ever felt like love was a rebellion? Comment below and share your story. This is just the beginning. Part 3, Whispers in the Pew, and Eyes That Followed Us Home. Coming next, Part 3, Whispers in the Pew, and Eyes That Followed Us Home. You don't always hear when the gossip starts. Sometimes, it's just a glance too long, a silence too sharp, a smile that doesn't reach their eyes anymore. But in a small church like St. Jude's, even whispers echo like sirens. It started with Mrs. DeMarco. She always sat front row, veil in her hair, rosary clutched tight. The week before, she'd hug me. This Sunday, she avoided my aisle, pretended she didn't see me when we passed near the altar, like I had become invisible, or worse, unclean. During youth group, I noticed a shift too. Some of the kids still joke with me, still came for advice or stories, but others had pulled back, guarded, quiet, their parents suddenly volunteering to chaperone more than usual, like I needed supervision, like I was a threat. Elias noticed it too. One night after choir practice, we sat on the back steps of the church. He passed me a bottle of soda from the vending machine, said nothing for a long while. Then he sighed. They're starting to look at us like they already know. I stared out at the parking lot lights. Maybe they do. He leaned back against the brick wall. I don't care, they know. I do, I whispered. He looked at me, soft, steady. I know. But knowing didn't make it easier. The walls felt tighter every week, the sermons more pointed. That Sunday, Father Patrick delivered a homily on sexual purity and spiritual discipline. He never named names, but he didn't need to. Every time he said deviant desire, I felt the weight of a dozen stares pressing into the back of my neck. Every word felt like a warning wrapped in scripture, and I could see Elias 2 pews behind me, face unreadable, still like stone. After communion, I rushed out. I couldn't breathe, not from guilt, but from being watched like a confession waiting to collapse. Elias caught up with me outside. You don't have to keep coming if it's killing you. I can't just disappear, I said. He touched my arm gently. I didn't mean the church. I looked at him, heart pounding. What are you saying? He shrugged. Leave. With me. Just go somewhere we're not sinners. Just people. I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to. But my mouth said, I can't. Because I wasn't just afraid of rejection. I was afraid of being erased. Of walking away from the only version of life I'd ever known, and still feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in years, I didn't pray, because I didn't know if God was listening, or if he was the one turning away. The next day, things got worse. A flyer had been posted on the youth room door. Protect our children. Purity matters. Pray for guidance. No name, no signature, just fear dressed up like righteousness. And I knew exactly who it was aimed at. I tried to talk to Father Patrick, but his office was closed. And when I asked the receptionist when he'd be back, she just said, he's busy with sensitive matters. Try next week. Sensitive matters, I whispered, like I was a scandal now, not a soul. Elias was furious. We met in the park that night, away from church walls and curious eyes. He paced. This is getting dangerous. I know. No, I don't think you do. They're not just whispering anymore. They're hunting. I flinched, but he was right. He stopped walking, looked me dead in the eyes. Say the word, Gabe. One word, and I'll pack everything. We'll leave tonight. My mouth opened, but all that came out was, I'm scared. He softened. I am too, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. And then he kissed me, in public, under the flickering street lamp, near the swings we used to sit on in high school. And for a moment, I didn't care who saw, because it felt real. It felt right. But nothing that right ever goes unnoticed, because the next morning, there was a letter in my mailbox, no return address, typed, "You are a disgrace to the church. Step down from your position before we go to the bishop." My hands shook as I read it, and for the first time, I cried, not from guilt, but from fear, because someone out there didn't just want me gone. They wanted me silenced. I showed Elias. He stared at it like it was poison. "They won't stop," he said. "No," I whispered. "They won't." "So what do we do?" I folded the paper slowly. We tell the truth before someone else tells a lie louder. That Sunday, I didn't sit in my pew. I stood before the congregation, hands trembling, heart racing, but voice clear. I have something to say. Every head turned, eyes wide, mouths already forming the shape of judgment. And I said it. I am not confused. I am not broken. I am in love. Gasps, chairs shifting, eyes darting toward Elias in the back row. And then, I understand if you can't accept that, but I will no longer let shame decide how I worship. It wasn't a sermon. It was a surrender, of fear, of silence, of pretending. Father Patrick didn't speak. Not then. No one did. It was the quietest church had ever felt. And as I stepped down, Elias was waiting for me by the door. He didn't say a word, just held out his hand. And I took it, right there, in front of everyone, in front of God, because if I was going to fall, I wanted to fall holding the truth. Have you ever had to choose between your place and your peace? Comment below if you've ever had to tell the truth before the world was ready to hear it. Subscribe for Part 4, when standing in the light comes with shadows of its own. Part 4. After the truth, they tried to bury us. Silence is loud in church. But after I told the truth, it became unbearable. The way people stopped meeting my eyes. The way conversations died when I entered the room. The way my presence felt like a stain no one could scrub out. They didn't kick me out. Not directly. That would have been too honest. They just made it clear I didn't belong anymore. That week, I got an email from the church board. After consideration, we feel it would be best if you took a step back from youth leadership during this time of spiritual realignment. Spiritual realignment. What a polite way to say, go away. I didn't tell Elias right away. Part of me hoped it would pass. That maybe someone would fight for me. That maybe Father Patrick would speak up. He didn't. He stayed behind his stained glass office walls and let the church decide what grace looked like. Apparently, it didn't look like me. Elias found out anyway. He always knew when something was wrong. We were sitting on the hood of his car, parked behind the abandoned thrift store, our secret spot. He handed me a root beer, watched me not open it. What happened? I looked out into the dark. They asked me to step down. Silence. Then, "Are you surprised?" I shook my head. "No." "Are you okay?" I lied. "Yes." He didn't push, just sat beside me, silent, warm. And in that silence, I felt something crack. Not because the church rejected me, but because for the first time, I didn't want it back. Not like that. Not if it meant sacrificing the one person who made me feel alive. The days got heavier. My parents found out next. Not from me, from someone concerned. They sat me down at the kitchen table, like I was a stranger. My mother's voice broke when she said my name. "Gabriel, why didn't you tell us?" My father didn't speak, just looked at me like I'd let him down before I ever had the chance to explain. "I was afraid," I said, "afraid of losing you, afraid of losing everything." My mother cried. My father finally stood. "We raise you better." That one sentence shattered something in me, not because it was angry, but because it was cold, empty, final. They didn't kick me out. They just stopped inviting me to dinner. Stopped saying, "I love you," when I left the room. Stopped seeing me as someone worth knowing. And in some ways, that hurt more, because it made me question if their love ever had conditions I hadn't known were there. The town followed suit. The grocery store workers stopped saying hi. My name disappeared from the church bulletin. A substitute took over the youth group. I wasn't even mentioned in the announcements. I had become a ghost in the place I grew up. And yet, Elias was still there. He never asked me to change. Never told me it would get better. He just stayed. And when the silence got too loud, he held my hand until I remembered how to breathe. One night, we drove out to the edge of town, parked where the stars still showed through the light pollution. He played some old indie playlists he loved, songs I never heard before, but suddenly couldn't live without. Then he looked at me. "Let's leave." I didn't respond. "I mean it," he said. "Let's just go. Start over." "Where will we even go?" He shrugged. "Somewhere with no pews, no stairs, no fear." I looked at him, and for the first time, I almost said yes. But I still had roots, still had people I wasn't ready to let go of, even if they'd already let go of me. So I told him, "Not yet." He nodded slowly, but his eyes, they told me he wasn't sure how long he'd wait. A few days later, I got another note. This time slipped under my windshield after work. Typed, just like the last one, "You can't poison this church. Leave now, before we make you." I brought it to Father Patrick. Finally, marched into his office, uninvited, dropped it on his desk. "This is what your silence allows." He looked at the paper. Didn't touch it. "This isn't the way to handle things, Gabriel." "No," I snapped. "The way to handle things was weeks ago, when you heard your congregation turning against me, and you said nothing." He sighed, folded his hands. "You made a choice, and choices come with consequences." I stared at him. "Is that what you think this is? A punishment?" "No," he said quietly. "I think it's a test." "A test of what?" "Your faith." I shook my head. "No, it's a test of yours, and you're failing." Then I walked out, and I didn't go back. Not that week, not the next, and not the week after that. I was done begging for grace from people who couldn't see past their own fear. Elias noticed a shift. He smiled more around me, relaxed in ways I hadn't seen since we met, but I could still sense it in him. That tension, that quiet question, how long can we survive here? Then came a phone call. My mom, she was crying. Your father collapsed. Hard. They don't know yet. I dropped everything, raced to the hospital. And when I got there, he wouldn't let me in the room. Told the nurses I wasn't family. Told my mom to keep him out. That's when I realized this wasn't just rejection. It was exile. That night, Elias held me while I broke. I cried harder than I had in years, because part of me still wanted to be their son, still wanted to be enough. But part of me knew that boy was gone. "I can't stay here," I whispered. Elias didn't answer, not with words. He just kissed me. And for the first time, I kissed him like he was home, because maybe he was. What would you do if the place that raised you refused to love you as you are? Comment below if you've ever been pushed out for being honest. Subscribe for part 5, where leaving might be the only way to live. Part 5, the night we finally packed our things. Leaving isn't always about the place. Sometimes it's about the people and the silence they wrap around you like a noose. After my dad refused to see me at the hospital, I didn't go back home, not to visit, not to check in, not even when my mom called to say he was recovering. I just couldn't, because there's only so many times you can knock on a door that was never going to open. I stayed with Elias after that. At first, it was just a few nights, a few clothes in a backpack, a toothbrush in his bathroom drawer. Then one night turned into two into 5, and suddenly his apartment smelled like my shampoo. We didn't talk about it, but we both felt it. Something was shifting, not just between us, but in the way we looked at the world now. like we were standing on the edge of something, and the only thing left was to jump. One night, I came home late from work. My eyes were heavy. My body felt like stone. But the second I stepped inside, I froze. Candles, dim lighting, soft music playing from the old record player he bought at a garage sale, and Elias in the kitchen, shirt half unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up barefoot, stirring something on the stove. He looked up and smiled. "You always look like the world is sitting on your shoulders." I leaned against the doorway, "Because it is." He turned off the stove, wiped his hands. "Then maybe it's time we leave the world behind." We ate on the floor, just the two of us, bowls balanced on our knees, laughing about something dumb on TV. And for a moment, I forgot what we were running from, because this felt like something worth staying alive for. Then he said it, out of nowhere. "Let's go." I looked at him, confused. He clarified, "Not tomorrow, not next month. Tonight, let's pack what matters and drive until the church bells disappear." I blinked. "You're serious?" He nodded. "I've been waiting for the right time. But maybe there isn't one. Maybe we just have to choose now." There was silence, the kind that stretches across your chest like a decision waiting to be made. And I realized there was nothing holding me back anymore. No job I loved. No family who wanted me. No pew with my name still on it. Just a person. One person. Who looked at me like I was worth running toward. Not from. So I whispered, "Okay." We moved like ghosts. Packing clothes into duffels. Folding old photos into books. Unplugging chargers and wrapping mugs in towels. It was chaotic. Messy. But we couldn't stop smiling. Because the act of leaving felt like an act of living. At midnight, we stood in the apartment for the last time. Elias looked around. "You think we'll miss this place?" I shook my head. "Not if we find something better." He turned to me. "What if we don't?" I kissed him. "Then we make something better." The drive started slow. We didn't know where we were going. Just away. We didn't blast music. We didn't talk much. We just let the wind fill the silence. Let the moon follow us. And somewhere between mile 82 and 110, I cried, not out of fear, but relief, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't apologizing for who I loved. I wasn't asking for permission to breathe. I was just existing, and that was enough. We stopped at a diner, somewhere past state lines, ordered pancakes and eggs. The waitress didn't ask questions, didn't flinch when we sat next to each other, legs touching, eyes tired. She smiled like she'd seen runaways before. And maybe she had. Maybe everyone runs from something. Ours just happened to wear a cross. At the motel, Elias passed out first. I stayed awake, staring at the water stains on the ceiling, feeling the scratchy motel sheets under my legs, listening to his breath rise and fall beside me. And I thought, this shouldn't have taken so long. This peace, this freedom, this love that wasn't hidden behind locked doors and whispered prayers. The next morning, we drove again, through small towns and quiet highways. Everywhere we stopped, people saw us. Some stared, some smiled, some didn't notice at all. And that was the best part. Being invisible was a gift. No judgment, no side eyes, no sermons, just us, existing. At one point, Elias reached over and turned off the music, said, "I think we should start over. New names, new rules." I laughed. "You want to fake our deaths?" "No," he smirked. "Just rewrite our story." I looked at him, heart full, eyes soft. I don't want to be anyone but me, but I'd rewrite every chapter if it meant ending up here. By day 5, we found it, a small town on the coast. Population, less than 2,000. Quiet, peaceful, with a bookstore that served espresso in mismatched mugs. We rented a small cabin for the month. Elias said it felt like a movie. I said it felt like home. One night, we lit a fire on the beach. He brought out his guitar, played an old song he wrote in high school, and when he finished, I whispered, You think God's still watching us?" He smiled sadly. "Maybe, but I don't think he's judging anymore. Because love, real love, doesn't need a steeple to be sacred. It just needs two people brave enough to hold it in daylight. Have you ever left everything behind just to finally feel free? Comment below if you've ever walked away from a life that wasn't truly yours. Subscribe for part 6, where love isn't hidden anymore, but peace still comes at a price. Part 6, even in freedom, we didn't feel safe. Peace isn't quiet, not when you're waiting for it to disappear. The first week in our new town felt unreal. No one stared when we held hands. No one followed us with whispers. No one told us we were going to hell. It was liberating. But sometimes, after years of hiding, freedom feels like a trap, like you're waiting for the door to slam shut again. Elias adjusted faster than I did. He started volunteering at the local art center, made friends at the cafe, even picked up his guitar again. Me, I still woke up checking over my shoulder, still waited for the phone to ring with my father's name, still listened for footsteps that never came. Because when you've lived in fear long enough, even silence sounds like a threat. One night, Elias found me sitting on the porch, alone, hoodie up, staring at nothing. He sat next to me. "I know that look," he said. I didn't answer. He nudged me. "You still think someone's coming?" I nodded slowly. It's like I can't shut it off. He leaned back, arms behind his head. I used to think peace was a place. And now, I think it's a decision. That stuck with me for days. Because what if peace wasn't about where we were, but how much of our past we let go of? 2 weeks in, I got a text. "Mom, your father's been asking about you." 3 hours later. "Mom, he won't say it, but I think he regrets what he said." I stared at the screen until it blurred, then put the phone down. I didn't reply, because I didn't know what I'd say. Forgiveness wasn't a switch. It was a process, and I wasn't there yet. Elias saw the message. I didn't have to tell him. He just looked at me and said, "You don't owe them anything, Gabe." I nodded, but the truth? I still wanted them to love me, even if it was impossible. One morning, Elias and I went to the beach before sunrise. He brought coffee. I brought my journal. We sat on the cold sand in silence, watching the sky turn orange. And then I asked him something I'd never said out loud. "Do you ever wonder if we're wrong?" He didn't flinch. "Every day." I blinked. He continued, "But not because I believe it, because they made me believe I should." I stared out at the waves. "Same." Then he said, "I may never unlearn all the guilt, but I'm learning something else." "What?" He reached over, laced his fingers with mine. "Joy." Later that night, we cooked dinner together. Pasta, wine, music playing low. And for the first time in weeks, I laughed. Hard. That real kind of laugh that feels like oxygen. He watched me with a soft smile. "What?" I asked. He just shook his head. "You're beautiful when you're not carrying the world." Then came the letter. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside a single sheet. Typed, "Cold. Your sins followed you. Just because you left doesn't mean God can't find you." My heart stopped. Not because I believed it, but because someone knew where we were. Elias found me sitting on the bathroom floor, letter in hand, shaking. He knelt down. "What is it?" I handed it to him. His jaw clenched. "We were careful," I whispered. "We didn't tell anyone." He didn't speak for a while. Then finally, I think someone followed us. We debated for hours. Who it could be, how they found us, whether it even mattered. But the truth sat between us like a wall. We were still being hunted, not physically, spiritually, emotionally, by people who couldn't let go of who we used to be. That night, Elias packed a bag. "Maybe we need to leave again." But I stopped him. "No," I said, "we've run enough." He looked at me, really looked at me, and nodded. "Then we stay, but we protect what's ours." We installed cameras, changed our routines, stopped sharing pictures online. became shadows in our own sanctuary. But we stayed, because running was no longer the answer. Owning our truth was, even if it came with threats. The next Sunday, I went back to church. Not ours, not the one that turned us away. A small, open community-centered church 2 towns over. Rainbow flag in the window, wooden benches, no priest, just a speaker sharing a message of love. And for the first time in months, I cried during a service, not from shame, but from release. Elias held my hand the whole time, and after I asked, "Do you think God followed us here?" He smiled. I think he never left. Because maybe God wasn't in the rules. Maybe he was in the moment Elias touched my hand and my body didn't flinch. Maybe he was in the silence we filled with laughter. Maybe he was in every mile we drove away from fear. Maybe God was in love that didn't hide. Have you ever had to choose joy, even while looking over your shoulder? Comment below if freedom didn't come easy, but was worth the fight. Subscribe for Part 7, when the past tries to pull them back one final time. Part 7, the letter that almost sent us back. You can leave the place that broke you, but sometimes the people there don't let you go. It had been almost 2 months since we left. 2 months of breathing like we deserved to. 2 months of silence that wasn't suspicious. 2 months of peace that still felt like a borrowed coat. Warm, but not entirely ours. We thought we were done running. But then the second letter came. It arrived in the same plain envelope. No stamp, no address. Inside, a single sentence. You think you're safe because you ran, but God still sees you. I stared at it for a long time, not because I believed the threat, but because I recognized the handwriting. It wasn't typed this time. It was familiar, neat, slanted, controlled. It was my mother's. Elias found me sitting at the table, letter open, hand shaking. I didn't say anything, just pushed it toward him. He read it once. Then again, his jaw tightened. She sent this? I nodded. Silence. Then, did you know she'd follow us? No, I said quietly, but maybe I should have. That night I called her, hands trembling, voice dry. She picked up on the third ring. Gabriel, why did you send that? A pause. Then, I was trying to warn you. My heart dropped. Warn me? From what? From being happy. From being lost. I laughed bitterly. Lost? Mom, I found myself the moment I left. You found sin. No, I found love. She didn't respond, just breathed, and in that breath, I could feel the weight of all the years she spent believing silence was faith. I softened. Did Dad ask you to send it? Another pause. No, he doesn't know. Then why do it? Because I still believe God can fix you. I closed my eyes. He doesn't need to. After I hung up, I cried, not because she hated me, but because she still believed this was about fixing something broken. And maybe that was the cruelest part of all. Elias didn't say much that night. He just held me, let me fall apart in his arms, let me grieve the mother I used to believe would always stand by me. The next day, a package arrived from the church. Inside was a small black box and a note. We've removed your name from our books. May you one day return to the truth. Inside the box was my confirmation cross, the one I wore at 13, the one I held when I prayed, the one I kept in my drawer through every teenage storm. They sent it back like I died, like I wasn't welcome anymore in a house I'd once called holy. Elias was furious. He wanted to burn it, toss it into the ocean. But I said no, because that cross, it wasn't theirs to give meaning to, and it wasn't mine to destroy. So I kept it, not as a symbol of what they took from me, but of what I reclaimed. That weekend, we drove to a nearby town for groceries. We parked, walked through the farmer's market, and then I saw him, across the street, watching us, face partially hidden under a baseball cap. But I knew that posture, that height, that stillness. It was Eric, a guy from the old church. He had been close to my father. close enough to know where we might run if we ever did. I froze. Elias followed my gaze. Is that? I nodded slowly. We turned, walked away, fast, my heart racing. Elias whispered, "You think he followed us?" I don't know, but I did, and the thought chilled me to the bone. That night, we debated again. Stay or go, start over again, change our names, cut ties completely. But I said no, no more hiding. Elias stared at me. You're sure? No, I admitted, but I'm tired of being afraid. If they want to watch us, let them, but I'm not living my life behind drawn curtains anymore. We went to the beach that night, built a small fire, and for the first time in days, I smiled, genuine, because I realized they could take my position, my pew, my place in their story, but they couldn't rewrite mine. Elias strummed his guitar, soft chords, gentle rhythm, and I lay beside him in the sand, under the stars, under the truth, under the God I still believed in, just not the one they used to scare us. Have you ever had to choose between freedom and family, and then found they were never the same thing? Comment below if your past ever came knocking, and you finally said, not this time. Subscribe for part 8, when the confrontation finally happens and love stands its ground. Part 8, the day we didn't run. You always think the final confrontation will come with thunder, shouting, slammed doors, maybe a few tears. But sometimes it arrives quietly, wearing a familiar face. We were coming out of the grocery store. Elias was teasing me for picking oat milk again. The sun was soft, the parking lot half empty. It should have been a normal day. But then I heard it, Gabriel. I turned and froze. It was my father. He looked older than I remembered, thinner, eyes heavier. He didn't look angry, didn't look proud either. He just looked as if he was trying to decide who I was now, and whether that version deserved to be spoken to. Elias instinctively stepped closer to me, not protectively, just present, visible. My father noticed and flinched, but he didn't leave. Mom told me where you were, he said. I didn't respond, just waited, because I wasn't going to offer an apology he hadn't earned. He looked at the ground, then at Elias, then back at me. I came to say I was wrong. The words knocked the air out of me. For a moment, I wasn't 23. I was 13 again, sitting on the church steps with a broken bike and a scraped knee, waiting for him to say something kind, something true. Now, after everything, there it was. I was afraid, he said, voice tight, afraid of what it meant, of what people would say, of how I raised you. He paused, shook his head. But none of that matters if it means losing my son. I swallowed hard. You didn't just lose me, I said. You threw me away. I know. Silence. Then, I've been trying to unlearn it. Everything they taught me about love with limits. Elias reached for my hand. I let him, and my father saw it. Didn't flinch this time. He just nodded slowly. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't know if I can. I said honestly. That's fair. He stepped back, pulled something from his jacket. It was a photo. Me, age 5, hugging a stuffed lion, standing beside him at a church picnic. I kept this, he said, because it reminded me of a time before I knew how to hate things I didn't understand. Then he handed it to me, turned, and walked away. No drama, no demands, no redemption arc. Just a father finally admitting he didn't know what love looked like until it was too late. I held the photo all the way home. Elias didn't speak. He just drove with one hand on the wheel and one hand on my knee, a quiet anchor, a promise that I wasn't alone in this world anymore. Back at the cabin, I stood outside for a long time, staring at the trees, at the way the light filtered through the leaves. And for the first time since we left, I didn't feel like I was hiding. I felt like I had chosen this place, chosen this life, chosen Elias. He came out eventually, wrapped his arms around me from behind. What are you thinking? He asked softly. I held the photo tighter. That I never thought I'd get a version of closure. Not from him. And now, I think closure doesn't look like a clean ending. It looks like learning how to keep walking, even with the bruises. That night, we invited our neighbors over for dinner. A young couple down the road. 2 women, artists. We laughed, shared wine, talked about books and movies, and the one time Elias tried to surf and nearly broke his nose. It was the most ordinary kind of joy, and I realized this is what they told us we'd never have. A life, not in secret, not in shame, just life. Before bed, I pulled out my old confirmation cross, held it in my hand, and whispered, "You never abandoned me. I just had to find you beyond the noise." Because faith doesn't live in buildings, and love doesn't bow to fear. And family is who stays when the sermon ends. Elias pulled me into bed, whispered, "You okay?" I nodded. For the first time in years, yeah. He smiled. Good. Because tomorrow I was thinking we finally repaint the cabin. I laughed. That your version proposing? He shrugged. Maybe. Depends on your answer. I didn't give it right away. Just kissed him. Slow. Certain. And in that kiss was everything. The pain. The healing. The home we made out of wreckage. Because they told us we were broken. They told us we were sinful. They told us we'd be alone. But we were never alone. We found each other. We found peace. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most sacred thing of all. If you've ever built a life from pieces they tried to break, this story was for you. Thank you for walking every chapter with us. Comment below if love ever saved you from silence. Like, share, and subscribe, because the truth doesn't always need a pulpit to be heard.